Space has dropped on a new week of Soccer Down here. December 16th is the date. It is a Monday, which means it's an overreaction Monday. Whatever you want to overreact about in the world of soccer, please do so on our Twitter timeline at Soccer Down here. We'll get into the conversation. There was a few overreactions last night that popped up when Ezequiel Barco was not listed on Argentina's U23 squad for Olympic qualifying coming up. Felipe Cardenas got down to it and got some information from the club. We'll get into that here in just a second. Felipe will join us on tomorrow's show at 9:30, but before we get into the latest boat show news, the latest Barco watch, because it seems like there's always a Barco watch, we're just a little late this morning because John's phone hates all of us again. And it's probably still frozen and or wet and who knows what else from the weekend of calling 11 billion high school football games at Georgia State Stadium. How crazy was it?
Well, Friday obviously was somewhat meteorologically challenged. And for the record, it was the first time it's the first time that I can remember where, you have one of those all-weather coats that, is rain repellent and all that kind of stuff.
All-weather is what they say it is.
Yeah. It's the first time ever in the history of me having one of those coats that I bent over and had water stream from the collar of that jacket onto the floor. First time that has ever happened.
I checked in from time to time watching on GPB, and I caught one of the trophy presentations, and you didn't look too happy.
Well, let's see. When you're wearing about 38 layers, and the thing is that you have to dress for multiple things.
Yeah.
You have to dress for the studio presentation and the in-between games and the halftimes and all that kind of stuff. And then you have to dress for the trophy presentation. So literally my outfit for Friday was slacks, dress shirt, tie, blazer. Blazer would come off.
Yeah.
Raincoat, all-weather coat would go on. Hat goes on. And at the same time, you're also wearing all this electronic equipment so you can hear the director, the producer, and the over-the-air. So you're hoping that you're not getting electrocuted, because of the earpiece pack that you have attached to your person that's underneath your coat. And then you have to take all that stuff off, put the other stuff back on. The hat that I was wearing, took it off after the last trophy presentation on Friday night. Came back Saturday morning. 14 hours later, it was still wet.
Oh, yeah, not surprised.
So you had the weather on Friday, and then obviously the stories on Saturday. And one of my very good friends, and me and the boss's very good friends, won a title, and he's fighting cancer. And it was a special moment on Saturday morning to be able to share that with him, considering how much he's been fighting recently. So it was a bunch of different emotions on a lot of fronts. You got to see a lot of great talent that's going to be showing their talents off in other places come Wednesday, considering that's early signing day. But no, it was a long weekend, 8 games, 38 hours, and I went to Waffle House, and I was so tired I didn't even finish my Waffle House on Sunday morning. Yeah, I was that tired. Lost 10 pounds.
I've never seen or heard of this happening.
Yeah, lost 10 pounds that whole weekend.
Jeez.
And yeah, did not finish my Waffle House. I was that tired.
Ay, Dios mío.
Mm-hmm. It definitely is an adios mio. But no, it's Marietta's going to play in some games out in Vegas, I think, next weekend. But no, it was
okay.
That's new. They're having a Geico Bowl series, and I think that Bishop Gorman is hosting out in Las Vegas, and so Marietta's going out there. They don't know if they're going to play on Friday or Saturday, but still waiting word on that. But yeah, Marietta wins, all that talent. But the thing is, with signing day being on Wednesday, and you're going out to play in a game on either Friday or Saturday, how much of the do you care gene is going to be involved in that with these kids, considering that they've signed their lives away to go and play college?
Yeah, I don't know. High school's a little different, and maybe it won't be like the bowl games now where, a lot of guys are like, yeah, I'm going to skip bowl game because I don't really care about the Bluebonnet Bowl or the Poulan Weed Eater Bowl or the Copper Bowl. I just tried to throw as many old bowl games that I could remember off the top of my head that didn't.
The Garden State
anymore.
Bowl, the Cherry Bowl.
Yeah, all those nonsense bowls. I don't know. High school's maybe a little bit different. And it's something that, to spin it back to the soccer front, because that's what I try to do.
Yes.
The high school soccer finals that we've had a chance to call, it's, I think, a huge opportunity for the GHSA to have another showcase event. You know, I mean, they have the championships for all the different sports, and some are bigger than others, and we know that. And these are very big, especially with certain schools participating. I mean, this was Marietta's first title since 1966, if I remember right. 67? Okay.
Yeah.
You get, great stories out of the football side. Of course, the football side is probably going to draw the biggest crowds. Basketball draws. I think it depends on some of the schools, but we saw it last year down in Macon. There were some games that drew very, very well in the high school soccer championships, and it feels like something that can grow even bigger. And I know in the soccer world, the high school side of it is usually left out of the conversation in terms of importance. Maybe in different parts of the country, the high school game is a little more important than others. And it's complicated because of Development Academy and because of so many kids in professional academies now. The high school game and its importance is lower than it used to be. But I still think from the Georgia side, and especially, Development Academy takes, at those age groups across the state, we're talking 50, 60 kids out of high school. It's not a huge number. There's still plenty of players across the state. And I think in soccer, maybe more than the other sports, outside the metro Atlanta area, those are the schools that can really benefit from high school soccer becoming a bigger deal because they don't have access to Development Academy. They don't have access to top club teams, and they might say, well, I'm going to focus more on my club team than my high school team. I think we saw it with schools from Gainesville, from the Dalton area, from North Georgia, from South Georgia.
Yeah,
it feels like it's the next big opportunity for the Georgia High School Association is to really blow up the soccer side.
No doubt. And, when you and I were there in Macon to see folks from Thomasville come up, folks from the Northeast Georgia mountains come up and be in the last game of the year, you got to see how special it was.
Vidalia come up for their girls.
Oh, I mean, that was amazing. I mean, and to see this, I would hope that you look at the Georgia High School Association and you have this opportunity where you have these towns that are successful in the sport, whether it's boys or girls, and making it to the last game of the year. And you're seeing these towns that are traditionally either tied to football or tied to basketball, and they're showing out for soccer. So jump on that momentum, jump on what you're seeing, and you really do have the chance to blow it up with the venues and things like that. I think that 5-Star for what we were able to see and show, I thought it was a great venue for it, and it had a lot of the amenities and a lot of the room that you need for these up-and-coming cities and these up-and-coming programs to show themselves off. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what the next steps are when it comes to the soccer championships for the GHSA, because it is an opportunity that they really can capitalize on.
I do think for college programs as well, especially with so many D2, D3, NAIA schools around the Southeast, this is where you're going to find a lot of talent that you might not know anything about or in these kinds of games, because these kids don't have the opportunity to play at high level club, even though they have the ability to. They don't have access. And it's something that when we talk about player development across the country, a lot of people leave that part out of the conversation. The cost comes up a lot, and it should, because at times it gets completely ridiculous. But when you have a great player in Vidalia, for example, and this came up about a player on the girls' side, a sophomore, Maddie Owen, who scored 90 goals this past season. 90.
Crazy.
9-0.
Crazy.
Very talented player. And when you see her, you could tell, you start to look like, where does she play? She's in Vidalia. Like, where are you going to play? What club is in Vidalia that people know about on a large national basis? There isn't one. If you're going to go, play at the club level at a club that has some standing, what, you're going to Savannah? And I mean,
Yeah,
how far is that?
it's probably 90 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, can you go train to play at a high level club like that? Can you go train 3 times a week, 90 minutes there and back on a regular basis? There's very few people who can do that. Parents work. Parents might work multiple jobs. There might not be an opportunity to get there for that. The schools can be another resource that, is it the ideal situation where you have that 3-4 days of training every week and you have all these things? No, it's not. Can it be better than what it is? Yes, it can. And there's things that I think the schools across the Southeast, this isn't just a Georgia thing, but there's opportunities that they can take to better develop players. But the thing is, they can serve soccer players in parts of the country and in Georgia, from what we see on a regular basis. They can serve players who have talent in parts of the state that don't have access to a top club. That there is not a top youth club in Vidalia, Georgia. And it's not a knock on Vidalia. It's just it hasn't been there yet. Hopefully there can be. And hopefully players who go to Vidalia High School can have that opportunity to train outside the season and get better and better and better and realize their full potential. But when we talk about player development and we look at the MLS teams and they have to do it all, well, there's a small number of them, really, when you look at the grand scheme of things across the country. And when they start pulling from outside their territory, they're pulling in from, other big areas that are not in MLS yet. All right, you have USL Championship teams that are starting to get involved in the academy, and that's great, and that broadens the reach. It doesn't serve Vidalia yet. It doesn't serve, small towns in different parts of the country that kids would have to travel hours a day to go train during the week to then play in top-level youth games. It's not everywhere yet. The schools are an avenue that don't get talked about enough. Are they perfect? No, because it's not like football and basketball where that's what's going to be the primary development arm. It's just not going to happen. But can it be a resource to identify talent? Yes, and I hope that it is, and I hope that both clubs and on the professional side and on the college side start to explore it maybe just a little bit more, because I don't want to see those types of stories go away, and I do want to see Georgia High School, because then the flip side is people have to know the stories, and it's just making the high school soccer tournament and finals a bigger and bigger deal, because we're starting to see a lot of schools that maybe aren't there on the football side, maybe aren't there on the basketball side, but are getting there on the soccer side on a regular basis, and it's a cool story.
And doing my Google Maps this morning, we mentioned Statesboro is a growing hub for soccer. It's an hour to Statesboro, and it's an hour 45 to Savannah.
And Statesboro, is new. They're building their academy. They're building partnerships, and what's so impressive, and we've talked about it a bunch of times when it comes to Tormenta, is that they did a pilot program this past year. You're talking about a USL League One team that did a pilot program of, professional training, including no cost, for multiple teams. And it's something that they hope can continue and grow and have more teams and more kids involved in it and start to identify some of these types of players. That's still an hour. If you're a top player in Vidalia, that's still an hour there, an hour back. Every day you're going to train. Mm-hmm. And, to reach your best, you've got to train more than twice a week. I mean, that was the old school way. It's like, practice on Tuesday and Thursday and then play on Saturday, and that's it. No, that's not how it works. So how many families can commit to that? It's a small number. It weeds out potential talent. So the more everything grows, maybe a top club starts in Vidalia and pulls in kids from around that area. And then also, more importantly, starts working with the youngest kids and teaching them the right way and building those foundations. And then those players get better and better. And then you create some real progress. But when we talk about development, it's not just in the big cities or the big markets or with the big clubs. It's areas like this too.
I mean, think about what you can have if you develop in these in-between areas. To be that first kid from Vidalia, to be that kid from Statesboro, to be that kid from Thomasville, to be that kid from Blairsville. I mean, to have that, and to have that you can hang your head on, where it's not just one sport, it's multiple sports, it's multiple athletes, it's all these different kids. And my biggest thought in all of this is don't waste the opportunity. It's presented there in front of you. You have this anchor. You have this fulcrum that you can attach yourself to. Don't let it just drift away. Attach to it and build on it because of what the future can be in a situation like this.
Watching the high school football championships this weekend, it kind of struck me how much of an opportunity there is on the soccer side for Georgia and other states to make those finals a bigger deal, which will put more eyeballs on it, which will hopefully start to see players from schools that either aren't identified with soccer or schools that just honestly aren't identified with producing athletes, period. Having those kids go on and play in college as a starting point, having those kids go on and sign with the South Georgia Tormenta as a professional player, and changing the idea of what soccer is in different parts of our state and other states as well. It's just a huge opportunity, and I know we get hung up on high-level youth club. It'd be cool to see the school get a little more shine here and take advantage of those opportunities. Look, this isn't just a United States thing. I mean, the size of the country makes it difficult, obviously, but talk about Ezekiel Barco. Barco was a kid from outside of Rosario who, went to the trials and couldn't get on with Newell's or Rosario Central, the biggest clubs that were closest to him. He ends up going to Buenos Aires because he had an advocate in Jorge Grifo, one of the most identified talent scouts in the country of Argentina. And, Grifo brings him to Independiente, and he, it's like boarding school. He leaves his family to go there to try to make it. And he did. And but there's other kids who are in that same situation that maybe don't. It's difficult because you can't be everywhere, but it's those scouts. A scout like Grifa who identifies him as like, okay, I know he hasn't caught on with the clubs closest to him, but man, this kid's talented. Let me get him in at a club where I have some influence. Let me get him in over here. That's something that we're lacking in this country, is those types of scouts who, are going out and watching youth games, but also school games in some of these areas, and saying that's a player that we get in the right situation with the right club, with the right coaching staff, and they can really develop to a whole nother level. Or we get them into this school and they can really develop into a whole nother level and potentially go pro out of college. That's the next level here, is where we can get that scouting network to not have these kids disappear. We'll keep working on it. One day we'll get there. It takes time, and sometimes it's a reminder when you see, in other sports, the importance of the schools. It's such an unimportant part of the soccer world, and it shouldn't be. It's another opportunity for kids to get seen. We'll come back to Ezekiel Barco on the other side of the break and talk about the Argentine U23 squad and a little bit of what's going on here, because I think initially you see that he's not part of the squad, and it's like, well, what happened? Why? Well, there's a very, very easy reason why. We'll get into that on the other side of the break.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, December 16th edition. It's an overreaction Monday. Let's overreact about Ezequiel Barco not being part of the Argentine Sub-23 squad. It's the Olympic qualifying tournament that'll be coming up here in January. Barco not getting the call. Not all domestic players in this group for Argentina. It's one player from MLS, Valentin Castellanos from New York City FC. A few players from Europe, but there's quite a few names that are not part of this group. And Felipe Cardenas dug into it after this news came out last night. An Atlanta United spokesperson confirmed that CONCACAF Champions League and MLS preseason prep are among the reasons why Atlanta United will ask Ezequiel Barco to report to January camp instead of the Argentine U23s. The other thing to remember, too, is when you have these youth national team, even, Olympics are a whole nother category, but just youth national teams in general, when you're talking about World Cup qualifying for the U20s, for the 17s, talking about the World Cup for the 20s and the 17s. It's not like a senior national team call-up where clubs are obligated to release the player for official competition. They're not at the youth level. The Olympics as a whole are not considered a senior national team event. So even the Olympics, the finals in Tokyo next year, clubs are not obligated to release players who are called up. In this case, Atlanta United has said, through a spokesperson to Felipe Cardenas, that they are not allowing Ezequiel Barco to be part of this Argentine team. He's not the only one. Inter Miami has two players, Matias Pellegrini, Julian Carranza, who could have been part of this squad, probably would have been under consideration at least. Pellegrini maybe a little bit more so than Carranza. Lisandro Martinez of Ajax, other foreign-based players are in the same situation. It's in a spot where if you're in Europe, you are either coming off of your winter break or you're just right in the middle of your season. If you're in Major League Soccer, you are in preseason. What's really interesting to me is that Atlanta United obviously takes the CONCACAF Champions League very seriously. They say no to this call-up. New York City FC is in the CONCACAF Champions League, and Valentin Castellanos is going to be part of this Argentine U23 team. Now, New York City FC is currently without a manager, currently without a sporting director after Claudio Reyna left. You've got a lot of upheaval in New York, and maybe it's a situation of priorities not really being established just yet. Could also be a little bit of a glimpse as to why or how important New York City is going to take the CONCACAF Champions League when they're allowing a player who, in Castellanos, who forced his way into the starting lineup late last season, was a regular feature in the lineup, has been getting more time with Argentina's U23s. Player really on the rise after a little bit of a slow start when he arrived in New York. He's not a player you would really want to be without in the CONCACAF Champions League. So I'm a little surprised that they allowed him to go when you see so many other clubs say, no, we're not going to allow our player to go to this.
So then what's your gut when it comes to Castellanos going and the others not being allowed to? Is it just all of the plates that they're trying to juggle right now at NYCFC, and they sit there and they don't want to deny him an opportunity, and despite everything that's going on right now, even though you don't have folks in place?
I think it's exactly because of the last thing you said. I don't think it's anything about denying him an opportunity. I think it's just there's nobody making those decisions right now. And I think it's a situation where, people are in positions and making decisions that probably would not be there in hopefully a month's time, and would not have been in those decisions to make those in those places to make those decisions a couple of months ago. So they're not thinking about the long term and the importance of it. There's nobody there to make that decision. There's not a manager there to say,
no,
I need him for this competition, or he would be a player coming off the bench for me because I've decided on what I'm going to go with, or at least what I think I'm going to go with going into training camp. And okay, I'd rather have him play there than be on the bench with me. It's a good opportunity. There's nobody who can weigh that right now. So I think it's honestly just they called, they asked, and whoever is making the decision at the moment said, okay, sure.
And with that, all right, I just want to see these next steps now with Castellanos heading out the door for the U23s and how NYCFC gets to handle Champions League. So,
sorry, I was incorrect. David Lee has been promoted from technical director to Claudio Reyna's position. So you have somebody in the sporting director role, and David Lee, who's been with the club from not quite day one, but pretty close. But he's in a new role, and without a manager there to really guide him as to if the player is going to play in this competition or not. And also, this is your first time dealing with a situation like this.
Right.
I get it. I think it's the manager, the lack of a manager, that's the most important thing here, because that's who's going to say, like, it's different than the Barco situation, because Barco, is going to start if he's healthy, he's starting. Like, that's just going to happen. So Castellanos, not 100%, because a lot of it is going to be down to how you play if you're New York City FC. Dome Tarrant settled into the 3-4-3 as the year went on and had his best success with that. Does the new manager come in and say, I want to play 4-3-3? Do they come in and say, I want to play 4-2-3-1? Do I want to just play Eber by himself up top and have Castellanos come off the bench? You don't know. So if you don't know, I guess let the player go.
Yeah, and that's with all these chainsaws that you're trying to juggle. Then all of a sudden, this one comes in, you add it, and you sit there and you go, yeah, okay, it's not a chance for you. Go ahead and go, not knowing everything else going on around you. So
one thing we've left out of the conversation that I think a lot of people jump to, and I would caution jumping to this so quickly, it would be my caution to overreaction Monday. Just because Atlanta United's not letting Barco go here doesn't mean that they have a sale in place. I don't think it has anything to do with that. It doesn't mean that they're worried about an injury or worried about either side, because I've seen people speculate to both. Like, oh, well, now people are going to see him. People know him. That's not going to happen. Or, oh, he's going to go, and then people are going to want to buy him, and they're going to have to sell him straight away. I don't think this is going to change that either. I think it's strictly down to Barco's going to be a big part of the squad in the first half of the year, and they want him ready to go because they're taking CONCACAF Champions League very seriously. I honestly think it's that simple.
And yeah, I mean, for me, that's what I was reading into it when I was looking at the headlines and all this kind of stuff. For me, I thought it was just as simple as Atlanta United's taking CONCACAF Champions League seriously. Love the fact that you asked. Keep asking when it comes to this particular player, but we've got some business we have to take care of right now, and we need him here.
Well, and youth national teams are a different conversation too, and Olympics are an even different conversation. So, a U20 World Cup is one thing, an Olympic qualifying tournament is another, and as many have said, and I would be right there with it, just because you're not going to this competition with the U23s doesn't mean that when it comes time for the Olympics in Tokyo that you're not called up and you're not allowed to go. Doesn't mean that at all. You're not going to see in these youth national team qualifying tournaments a lot of times the top teams from each country, because players are playing at the club level. They're playing professionally, and clubs don't have to let them go. But when you're talking about a finals, like a World Cup or an Olympics, it's a different conversation, and it's a different opportunity. And you might be more willing to sacrifice at that point if you're the club, because of what a lot of people have pointed out, and I completely agree. That's where players can raise their price tag. That's where players can raise their level, and it's a very important part of the development process. A qualifying tournament is not as important, so it's a little bit easier to say no to, and that's kind of where my head's at. Until we got the word from Felipe about the Atlanta United spokesperson saying some of the reasoning. That was my guess. That was my first gut reaction when I saw that news come out, that they turned down the call up, or it was a situation like that. Not that Argentina said, "Oh yeah, we don't rate Barco anymore." Not after putting him in the U23 team that played in that tournament in the Canary Islands and putting the number 10 shirt on him. It's not that they didn't rate him. It's that he's got work to do with his club that pays his salary and can make these decisions. Yes.
So, yeah, it's like I said, for me, it was fairly cut and dried across the board in the ideas. So, no, it's I get it completely.
Jeff Plucker chimed in on Twitter and said, "I'm torn. Believe clubs should 100% support youth national teams / national teams, but also believe in the business side. Barco had a great U20 World Cup, but got hurt and missed most of 2019. A good / great start of MLS 2020 with CCL games can help all involved a lot more. It gets him to a better top Euro club faster." The last part, it does, but also playing really well in this qualifying tournament would help too. I mean, it would. People pay attention to these, especially out of South America, because you're going to see a lot of top talents. I do completely agree. And youth national teams and national teams are two really separate ideas here. I think FIFA, for one, needs to move the Youth World Cup scheduling around a little bit. And it's something they need to do sooner rather than later. To have it in some of the windows that they've had it before, where it's in the middle of a season or at the beginning of a season or at the end of a season, it's just dumb timing. Like, put it in the summer with all your other competitions. And yes, if you have some overlap between competitions, if you have a European Championships going on at the same time as a U20 World Cup or a U17 World Cup, that's okay. It's okay to do that. It's better to do that, to put clubs in these situations where they're going to have to make decisions. Now, we know that MLS is going to have to make these decisions because of their scheduling, and other leagues that follow that kind of schedule are going to have those decisions, but far less are. I think then your youth national team competitions become more important, and you're able to do it in a better way. Do qualify differently too. Like, I don't know why it's around the world doing it like this, instead of, how you do World Cup qualifying. I mean, let's keep it simple. Let's make it more reasonable for clubs to let these players go in these situations. Do it in FIFA windows. You don't have to go and have everybody come together for, a continental U23 Olympic qualifying tournament / championship. Like, really? Just do it in the windows. Like, yeah, have extra games, and you're going to have a little bit of travel, but if you want to make it more like knockout round style, or you want to have smaller groups and do it that way, do it. But do the youth national teams in the same windows that you do the senior national teams. You'll get more participation. It'll be easier for clubs to let players go and go down that road. And also said, then the flip side is cut back on some of the international windows for meaningless fixtures. If you have the windows for World Cup qualifiers, for in Europe, European Championships qualifiers, CONCACAF and UEFA Nations League, and where that doubles up as qualifying for different competitions, cool. Have those windows that are necessary. Have a one friendly window for teams to pick up some of those friendlies. Fine, and that's it. We don't need quite as many international windows. I think you can cut one from the calendar and still make all this work, but put the youth national teams in those windows too. And I think then it's easier for everybody to participate.
Disappointingly, as we've done this show we're in our third season now, and it seems like we have a lot of conversations about scheduling on an international scale. And
it's difficult. It is. I get it.
But if you took some common sense and applied it to it, then you wouldn't be running into all these issues, I wouldn't think.
No, it's not that simple. I mean, it's not strictly a common sense thing because, look, you've got Europe, who probably drives this conversation more than anybody else. You've got South America with 10 countries. You've got CONCACAF with a couple heavyweights and in a whole lot of other countries. You've got Asia, Africa, Oceania. You've got a lot of different things you have to juggle if you're FIFA when it comes to scheduling. League scheduling, continental scheduling, different conversation. FIFA is where we're at right now, and it's not easy to get everybody on the same page. I understand that. They need to do a better job of getting as close to the same page as you can. Can we get in the same chapter? Can we get there at least? I think right now we're at least in the same encyclopedia set. Can we get to the same chapter? Because then it will streamline things a little bit more. Then you don't get these situations like we've seen in the past where you had teams having to figure out, how am I going to deal with players leaving my Premier League team to go play in the African Cup of Nations because it's happening at a time in the middle of the season. It's like, why are we doing that? That makes no sense. That's where FIFA can step in and say, all right, look, we have continental championships in these continents. We're going to schedule it this way to get the maximum impact. And that way we minimize how much it hurts the club game. Because, look, that's what drives the most money in the game right now. It does. The international play is great. And it's something that I hope never goes away. I know some can't stand international breaks, don't care about the national team play. I disagree. I think it's vital. But it has to complement the day-to-day club game, not drive the club game. I think that's changed in the last few decades, especially here in the United States, but worldwide. And FIFA has to do a better job of creating that complement, or you're going to have more clubs fight players going to their national teams.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I was asking the question about the scheduling, because it seems to be something that it loops into our conversations this time of year, or at least when you're getting into international competitions. And that's why I was wondering and asking honestly about how much common sense can be applied here to fix the situation to where you're not necessarily denying every single opportunity, but everything can have a logical place and work its way through, so there's more benefit to the game on the whole internationally, and so players can get their national reps at the same time. That's why I was asking the question.
There's just not a direct answer because of all the different club competitions that are on different schedules, all the different FIFA confederations that are under different schedules and how they do their championships. I don't think you're ever going to be able to 100% streamline it because, look, Europe has to do a qualifying competition for the European Championships. South America doesn't have to do that for the Copa America. They have to invite people to get it to a number that makes sense. That's a huge difference right there, just in terms of the number of games and how it's going to work. So, as long as you have situations like that, there's only so much you can do in terms of scheduling to make it work for everybody. And FIFA has its own problems. I mean, FIFA now has, I think, put out a claim on monies that Michel Platini got that he shouldn't have gotten, and now they've put out a claim, I think, for $2 million, and they've tied Sepp Blatter to it, and they're just trying to get their money back at this point. Maybe once they get all their money back and can eliminate corruption, as they said they did, but they didn't, and all the other problems that FIFA has, and then maybe they can get to scheduling. Probably going to take a while.
Yeah, fix the financials first and then get to the
calendar.
calendar.
Probably going to take a while. Probably going to take a long while. We're going to take a quick break and see if we can fix our financials. Yes.
Look at you with the transition.
Yeah, it's a Monday. We'll be back.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Overreaction Monday, December 16th. Sam Stejkal would probably qualify for Overreaction Monday, looking at his latest tweet. It's getting tight right now. He says, "Good morning. It's December 16th. Preseason begins in 26 days for CONCACAF Champions League participants, 33 for the rest of Major League Soccer. Miami not in the CCL, but they have no coach. They have 14 players signed to their expansion roster. New York City is in the CCL. They don't have a coach. Good on the roster side, though. Chicago doesn't have a sporting director, doesn't have a coach, doesn't have any designated players.
Oops.
Not oops. There's no oops. Oops is when you make a mistake. This is not a mistake, because you don't make 1, 2, you got 3 dozen, 5 mistakes. Like that's a
come on, man.
No, it's beyond that. I'm gonna pull an old school reference here. I've been digging deep into the archives for an upcoming history project, and reading about the ridiculousness about the first professional soccer leagues, because there were multiple, like major in the modern era, not going back to the American Soccer League, but we're talking what turned into the North American Soccer League. You had 3 groups in 1966 try to get sanctioning from the then United States Soccer Football Association. And, oh boy, you think USSF is is ridiculous now. It was ridiculous then too, and a lot some very scary similarities have popped up in my research. But one of the things that stuck to me when I was going through some of this.
Oh, is it the quote that you showed me on the weekend?
No, it's a different quote. That one's a good one, but this was about one of the cities that bought a group in one of the leagues, and it was in Detroit. And Detroit, I think that you had to pay $25,000 essentially to get a team at that time. The expansion fees have gone up just a little bit over the 50 years since, but $25,000 to get into the league. And the Michigan Soccer Commission, which is the equivalent of the state association, they were very angry that the general manager of the Lions was part of the group. The NFL Detroit Lions, you had a bunch of like NFL owners and front office people, NFL, Major League Baseball. Not really much NBA because it was really just getting started around that time too. A little bit of hockey crossover, especially out in Los Angeles as the Kings were getting started. Jack Kent Cook was involved in one of the leagues in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
But in Detroit, the state association was flat out angry about one of the people involved. He was the general manager of the Detroit Lions. And the president of the state association said that this man was, quote, a man of demonstrated incompetence.
I have to remember that one. That's good.
Yeah. That was a really fun one to read during this. He said that this guy leading the Lions, they, quote, have undeservedly become the doormat of the league and the butt of bitter jokes. Every Monday morning there is a new scapegoat, and it is never the real one. This is a man of demonstrated incompetence. I'm almost there with the Chicago Fire at this point. Like,
what are you doing? The answer is nothing. But...
No, they're doing a lot. They're doing a lot. That's the problem. Let's refresh, shall we? So,
surely,
the Chicago Fire last season, not really a good one for the Chicago Fire. The season before, not really a good one for the Chicago Fire. 2017, they finished third in the East. They got to the playoffs. They were spanked in the knockout round by the New York Red Bulls and knocked out of the postseason. The years before that, not really good ones. The last time the Chicago Fire won a playoff game, I think we're going back to 2009. They've only been in 2 playoff games since 2009. They've only had 1, 2, 3, and barely this past season, 4 seasons since 2009 where they won double digits. They got to 10 wins. This year they barely got to 10. It's abysmal.
Mm-hmm.
Coach after coach, gone. Leadership, gone. New leadership in, doesn't change. And then there's the logo rebrand.
Stalactite, Stalagmite, FC.
Which has not made anyone really happy.
Nope.
On top of the bad performance on the field, the move to Soldier Field, I like it. The new ownership, I like it because I feel like they're going to be engaged. However, right now, you've watched attendance go from 17,383 in 2017, where they made the postseason. That's their highest ever average attendance since year 1 at Soldier Field, 1998. This past year, going from 2017, where they finished third in the East, you had Bastian Schweinsteiger come in, you had excitement, to this past season where they drew 12,324. Now, it was pretty obvious early on they were going to move back to Soldier Field, but you had all the issues with the supporters groups, you had all the issues just in general, and you go from 17-3 to 12-3. in 2 seasons. And
down 35%.
Yeah. And you're taking that with no manager, with no sporting director, with no designated players, the Soldier Field to open up in March.
You got that going for you.
It's pretty close to demonstrated incompetence. It's pretty close.
I think it's demonstrated incompetence, but it's reinforced now. It's over and over.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of sad reading that about the Lions in 1966 because, I mean, where are the Lions today? They're kind of in the same situation. So,
yep.
Are the Chicago Fire going to be the Detroit Lions of MLS?
Probably. Reinforced mediocrity.
You can't be. And you got a new owner now, and I would hope that it's a different day. I would hope that it's a change. I would hope that they're going to put more of an emphasis, because otherwise, why move back to Soldier Field and pay the money that you're going to have to pay to get out of the lease in Bridgeview to rent Soldier Field on a game-by-game basis? I still think it's the right move. I think they can make money. I think it can work. But it's not going to work with no designated players, no manager, no sporting director on December 16th when training camps open in 33 days for your squad. It's got to be a little bit faster. And if it wasn't a recurring situation of, well, we've really tried to sign this guy, but we just got beat out, or we've really put in the effort and we put in bids and they just weren't quite good enough. We've really tried. All that's wonderful. It's nice to try. But
there is no try, only do.
No, that's incorrect. You have to try first, and they're saying they're trying. I don't know if what these bids have been. They're not public. We don't know. Are they ridiculously inferior bids? Maybe. The trying's great, but Chicago should be beyond a market that is just trying.
Mm-hmm.
That's the issue for me, is that Chicago should be able to do a good bid because they have. We saw it at the very beginning with Peter Novak, who wasn't like a major world superstar, but was a known player to the Polish community in Chicago, which is a big constituency. And you built a really good team on the field in the early days. Then you go out and you get Cuauhtemoc Blanco, who was a very well-known player, and changed who you were in the time that Blanco was there. But you haven't had anybody like that since. Even Bastian Schweinsteiger, it was a very short-term fix, because I think we've seen in the 20-plus years that the Fire have existed how much harder it is now to do it. You've got to not just go get a name, but you've got to have the success on the field too. And I think the Schweinsteiger era shows you that. Year one, you had success on the field. You had the name come in. You drew your second best attendance ever. Year three of Bastian Schweinsteiger, you were a very boring team to watch. You were 10, 12, and 12, and you missed the playoffs. And nobody wanted to come play. The Fire have to do both, and it's hard to do both. DC pulled off the doing both for a very short period of time with Wayne Rooney, where you got the buzz of the big name, but you got the performances on the field to back it up. They've got to do both now because of where they're at. They can't just go get a nice player who makes the team better on the field. They got to have the buzz too.
And that's the thing. It's like you can do all of the want to that you want, and it all sounds great and it all looks great, but at the end of the day, you're measured by what you do on the pitch, and it just has not been very exciting, enthralling, winning soccer for quite some time. And there should be a tremendous effort by the front office to try to turn things around. And as of right now, you're not getting those results. Yes, moving into Soldier Field for me was the play. Should have been done a while ago because no one's traveling to Bridgeview. And I keep waiting for Chicago. Okay, so it's like we're moving into Soldier Field. Fantastic. We've got a new logo. Okay. Whatever. But I understand what you were trying to do with that idea. Now, the product on the field, that should be the biggest thing that you address in addition to all these things, doing all these things simultaneously. You're moving into a new building, you've got a new look, and you have no players to show for it. And you've got, what are we saying, 5 weeks, just a little over a month before training camp starts?
33 days.
33 days. And I have seen virtually no movement of bringing in players when it comes to what you want to look like in 2020. If I was a season ticket holder, 1, great, you're moving to Soldier Field. Fantastic. Love that idea. 2, the new look. 3, the players that you're bringing in. Who are they? How would you feel right now if you were a season ticket holder or even a casual fan that isn't being attracted by what the Fire aren't doing, for a double negative in a sentence? I mean, right now it's, I'm not really looking forward to if I'm a soccer person in Chicago, I'm not going to be spending my casual dollars on the Chicago Fire right this very second. Yes, there are 5 weeks before training camp and all that, but right now, I'm not spending my dollars that I just have lying around to go see the Chicago Fire right now, and that's not a good sign.
In the last decade, you missed the playoffs 8 out of 10 times. You were the worst or next to worst team in the league 3 times. You were the bottom of the league more than you made the playoffs in the last decade. If you are a kid in the Chicago area and you want a Chicago Fire jersey at Christmas, what name are you putting on the back of it? Right now, you're probably
Blanco.
putting Jordy Mihailovic on the back of it if you want a current player. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have anybody exciting in this team right now. Your biggest offseason move is a logo that people don't really like, and signing Alvaro Medran, who is a nice player but doesn't move the needle at all. And you let all of your top players go from the past season. Some of them needed to, but you're in a very bad spot. So 33 days, Chicago Fire. It's going to be interesting to see what you do in that period of time. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, SDH, December 16th, Overreaction Monday. Share your reactions from the weekend with us on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. We will get to those. We're going to get to an advisory from MLS Communications. It came out at the top of the show. MLS Commissioner Don Garber to be joined by David Tepper and Mayor of Charlotte, Vi Lyles, for an announcement on Tuesday. What a shock!
I'm shocked.
I would have never guessed that this would be happening. It will be at the Mint Museum Uptown, 500 South Tryon Street in Charlotte. If you are media planning to attend the event, you can RSVP quickly as space is limited.
Yes.
It's going to be a party. And Charlotte's going to be joining Major League Soccer tomorrow. We will try to have a little bit of that press conference on the show in the morning. It will start at 10 a.m. tomorrow. We've went round and round about Charlotte, and we've talked a lot about it. I think it makes a ton of sense. I think David Tepper is going to be the right kind of owner that this league needs to continue to attract. You're talking big money. You're talking about somebody who's coming into it to make money, and that's a good thing. I think for some reason, at times in the soccer world, when we talk about owners and clubs wanting to make money, it's seen as bad. It's like bad words. No, it's good, and it's good for Major League Soccer to have somebody come in who's going to want to make money and do things to make money. Can't wait to see what the branding is. Can't wait to see how they build quickly, because they're going to build quickly. Tepper is not doing this to come in 3-4 years. They're going to come in 2021 by all accounts, and he's going to be building a group from scratch very quickly. You go back to the teams that have started from scratch in MLS expansion. This is a short timeline to do it, because let's go back through the teams that have come into the league. Cincinnati came in last year as a USL team. When were they announced as an MLS team? They had a little over a year, I think, to build, if I'm not mistaken. Meeting started, blah, 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 blah. They were awarded expansion. Actually, no, May of 2018, start play in 2019. Wasn't really a surprise, because Garber met with people in Cincinnati at the end of 2016. Okay, there were at least conversations going. David Tepper came into the mix for Major League Soccer. I mean, he mentioned it when he took over the Panthers in May of 2018. Is that roughly correct?
Yeah.
It was May of 2018. We don't know exactly, and we'll probably get a little bit more of a timeline on when he really started talking to MLS. I wonder if we have, let's see. So March, according to some, is when, March of this year is when they started talking about it. So that's a really quick turn to launch in 2021. But you go back to teams that started from scratch. LAFC started from scratch. 2015. They started in 2018. Okay. Atlanta United announced in 2014, started in 2017. New York City, NYCFC was announced on May 21st, 2013. They launched 2015. So that's 18 months-ish. All right. That's closer to this one. Starting from scratch, Montreal doesn't qualify there. Vancouver, Portland don't qualify there. Philadelphia, into February 2008. They launched in 2010. So this is going to be the quickest turnaround from a brand new team from scratch debuting. I think it's going to be the quickest turnaround from official conversations for a brand new team from scratch to debut date. Tepper's going to have a lot of ground to make up because, when we've talked about Atlanta United's success, and it's obvious that Tepper wants to emulate that in Charlotte, you had a long build-up, and you had a lot of pub diplomacy, as Darren Eales has called it. And you had a president of the club in place longer than Charlotte will have to ramp up. That's going to be difficult. Now, he did hire Tom Glick very quickly in the process of taking over the Panthers. Glick has a very strong soccer background, so it's been on his plate from day one, pre-day one. But those are the things. What Tepper does now, starting tomorrow at 10 o'clock when this announcement happens, everything will be magnified because of the short build-up to how much success they can have opening day 2021.
Article from the Charlotte Observer from Scott Fowler. When Tepper officially bought the Panthers summer of 2018, so May 2018 was when he bought them. He says he quickly made no secret of his desire to add an MLS team as a second tenant. So you're talking roughly a year and a half from first words to official announcement, and then another, 2 years to get things.
I think the important part is it sounds like the conversations with MLS and Tepper really started in March of this year. Yeah. It's one thing to say, I'm buying this team and
I want a
MLS
team
here. But Remember, Charlotte had a bid before that failed. Tepper was not part of the initial bid process, the initial expansion palooza that took place. So he came in, and from May of 18 when he bought the Panthers to March of 19, put everything together to start those conversations, to December 17th of 2019 having the team announced. That's quick.
Yeah.
And December 17th to, let's say, March 1, because we don't know exactly when opening day in 2021 will be, that's really quick.
And you've got a guy who, since day one of owning Carolina Panthers or whatever, guy's not worth $12 billion for sitting on his hands. And he has been flat out serious about the Panthers ever since day one. And when he sets his mind to something, and we're seeing this through all of the sound that we're getting from him ever since he stepped in the door with Carolina, then he starts mentioning stuff roughly 7 months ago. Yeah, I'm serious. Serious businessmen lay out serious plans. Tepper lays out this plan. Hey, here's the deal. I need the city to help me out with $110 million. City's behind it. I mean, just the overall urgency that David Tepper has given in all of these different steps, because I remember, when all these bids were coming out, we talked to the folks who were involved with the Bruton Smith bid and had them on the show. And they said that if they didn't get it, then they were done. And they didn't get everything that they were looking for. David Tepper has said, okay, A, B, C, D, E, I'm not messing around. Here's the deal. And you see the end result coming tomorrow before another round of new results start coming tomorrow.
the hiring of Tom Glick on September 16th, 2018 is when when he joined the organization. It was announced a couple weeks before that. I think that's where it truly got serious on the soccer front. So Glick has a lot of sports experience, not just soccer, but before joining the Panthers, he had been with City Football Group for 6 years. He was instrumental in launching NYCFC. Moved to New York in February of 2015 as the team's president. Went back to the UK to drive CFG's global expansion. I mean, he's been part of building training grounds. He's been part of building stadiums around the world. He's been part of adding teams to the portfolio for City Football Group. Fan relationship management for City Football Group's clubs. Chief commercial officer, partnership sales. I mean, pretty much everything you can imagine that you do from the top level of a club, Glick has done it with City Football Group. No small potatoes there. Started his career in baseball. He's worked in the minor league side. He's been involved in, building new teams, building new stadiums, small teams, big teams. He's been in the NBA. I mean, you're talking about somebody who is very well respected in the sports world, the soccer world, but also the sports world. He was at Derby County before joining CFG. Not many people you're going to find who understand the soccer world from a City Football Group perspective and a Derby County perspective and a New York City SC perspective, but also understands, the NBA from his time with the Nets, to understanding the grassroots of it with a team like the Lansing Lugnuts in minor league baseball. That's where his career started. The Jamestown Expos. I mean, you're talking about somebody who has done a little bit of everything in the game. He even had some hockey experience, the Peoria Rivermen. But all of that leads him to this. And now you've got somebody who can start it from scratch, but also do it on a big scale.
And you have someone there in Glick who understands that grassroots element from being in Jamestown, Pennsylvania, from being in Peoria, Illinois, from being in Lansing, Michigan. You understand what it means to be a part of the fabric of a city. And from that Class A / minor league hockey level, okay, community engagement, fan engagement, getting someone in the door for the first time, keeping them coming in the door, all of those different nights and all of those different attractions that you have, whether it's post-game fireworks or chuck-a-puck or all those little things that create the overall experience for a fan to get them in the door the first time and keep them coming in the door subsequent days, taking that experience, moving it forward, adding scale to it, then understanding the development of the business side of things, understanding the global scale when you're looking at CFG. So when you have someone in there like that who has all of these different check marks on his resume, from the Peoria Rivermen to Derby County and CFG, I mean, you're hitting all the different notes there about making sure that this goes off the ground the right way.
And all that's going to be critical because you're having to build it from scratch and do it in the right way. And, you see things pop up, and there's a lot of chatter right now in Charlotte and in social media world and the Twitter sphere and different groups trying to pop up as supporters groups and different groups covering the team and lots of things coming out of nowhere because there hasn't been much, I think, at the surface level. I mean, Charlotte's been a big soccer market for a while, but there hasn't been much on the day-to-day above the surface for the mainstream. And look, there's a lot of different people jockeying for attention. A lot of things happen at the moment. I think Glick being in a position where he's built things from scratch can push things in the right direction. Can't manufacture it because that side of stuff, all the things that we talk about here in Atlanta in terms of the supporters groups, in terms of the the blogs, the podcasts, all of it covering the game. The club can't run all of that. You have to have the right people who jump in and do it in the right way, and the community has to push it forward in the right way. And there's a lot of great people who I'm sure will be taking that on in Charlotte and putting a lot of their blood, sweat, and tears into it. There's some things that are going to be very interesting in how this comes together, because Atlanta had a lot of the right people push things forward at the right times in creating those cultures. And that's something that I want to see how it happens in Charlotte, too. Reportedly, according to Stephen Goff of the Washington Post, $325 million is the price tag to get in. Things have increased a little bit.
Yes.
Arthur Blank reportedly $70 million in 2014 to come into the league. Teams 28-29, it was $200 million. The last couple announcements, it was $150 million for your announcements prior to that. $325, and you're gonna get your. We had this conversation last week. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's a pyramid scheme. Well, when Cincinnati paid, I don't know if it was $150 or $200 million to come in, and towards the end of their first season, the club was valued by Forbes at $280 million. But then somebody bought 20% for $100 million, which would mean the actual sale price in total is up to $500 million. That's why. I mean, that's why. If you've got a team that just sold 20%, total price $500 million, that is a year old, and you're selling a new team to come in, it's pretty easy to make those numbers say, well, here's how much you're going to have to pay to get in the door.
Yep.
Pretty easy to draw that conclusion.
And it is, you have big business coming in. You have businessmen who have a tremendous amount of experience of creating things and making them both profitable and increasing their value by a third very, very quickly where MLS is. So, David Tepper didn't get to where he is financially by just sitting there and throwing money at a wall and then chasing it with thumbtacks. So, MLS is turning into a smart investment for folks who want to put the money in and get things moving and turn it into more than just something that's there, that's on a balance sheet, which we've seen in other places and other leagues across, on this planet. But you have smart businessmen coming in who understand the value of having an MLS franchise to their own portfolio in addition to what they mean to the communities that they're in.
Yeah, we didn't get the breaking news sounder for Chris Ashley earlier, but we have gotten the update here on our Twitter timeline. Chris Ashley's posted pictures of, I don't know where this is. It might be new offices coming, or maybe it has to do with the event. I'm not 100% sure, but pictures of the MLS Charlotte logos being put up on doors. So things are happening as they say, and we will have this announcement tomorrow at 10 o'clock with Charlotte, North Carolina joining Major League Soccer for what we think is going to be the 2021 season. Take a quick break, come back, get into some of your reactions from the weekend, also some news and rumors around MLS, and maybe even a little VAR talk if we're feeling frisky. We'll see how that goes. We'll be right back.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect. For officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, December 16th. All the things at this point. James McClatchy chimes in and says, fun to think of the MLS South Division. Atlanta, Charlotte, D.C., Cincinnati, Orlando, Miami, Nashville, St. Louis. Yeah, I guess St. Louis would have to go into that. So that's what, if we're doing the divisions, that's 8. That's James is imagining the 32-team MLS. The other two right now, you'd have to look at Vegas and Phoenix.
No.
Hold on. Vegas and Phoenix would be the other two to get it to 32. So if that's it in the South, see, I don't know. I wouldn't want St. Louis there because you want them to be in a division with like Chicago and Minnesota and all that, but.
You want them in the black and blue division in the Central, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know who you take otherwise because you don't want to break up the Texas teams. Columbus, but you don't really want to. Well, but you want Columbus and Cincinnati. So
yeah, you want Hellas real paired together, yeah.
Yeah, that's the trade-off I would take. So you'd lose Columbus with others, you'd keep Columbus with Cincinnati. Okay, so I'll take James's South Division, but swap out St. Louis for Columbus.
And so if we're looking 4x8, okay, so yeah, James, I guess, let us know if you're thinking 32, although with the 8 teams that are posted, we think you're going 4x8.
Yeah. Big picture MLS stuff with this type of expansion fee and all of that. As we said, you're getting to these expansion fees because you're getting real sales in the world of clubs that have existed for, in some cases, quite a few years, in some cases, a year. And that's why these numbers are what they are. And the way this stuff works, I mean, MLS is a little unique in the world of MLS or of a pro sports business in terms of being a single entity. I think you've seen pretty much every league, or maybe not everyone, but a lot of leagues that have started since MLS did, try to do single entity because it minimizes risk. It gives you more control over that growth. And like I said, I've been doing a lot of research about the beginning days of modern professional soccer in the United States, and you didn't have a whole lot of control. It was chaos. And that's one reason why you had like 20 teams in 1968 and you had 5 in 1969. And it's why you had 24 teams in 1979, and it's why you were out of business in 1985. It didn't work. And MLS started with the idea of let's be as stable as possible, let's minimize risk as much as possible, and grow the business. And it's grown. It's grown from 2002, where you made the decision to go back to 10 teams, drop Tampa Bay. He was league owned. You couldn't find a buyer. The Glazers passed on it. They were, I think, were the last real option. They went and bought something else that kind of made them some money. So, it happens. The Mutiny go away. Miami Fusion, that owner didn't have enough money to take the league forward, take the team forward. They go away. So you're at 10 teams going into the 2002 season. You're going to be at 30 to open the 2021 season. That's pretty crazy. And the expansion price tags show that growth. The business shows that growth. The valuations show that growth. The revenues show that growth. All of it shows that growth. All that being said, can the league continue to grow? Absolutely. Are there plenty of things that the league can do to grow faster and better? 100%. And that's a big part of the CBA. It's a big part of these negotiations with your players, which, by the way, when you look at the world standards here and you look at the scheme of things, because everybody wants to compare MLS and its success to what's happening in England and what's happening here, and they don't have a salary cap and they don't have this or that, and they're so much better.
Do you want what's going on in the championship right now?
No, you don't. And that's a huge issue, because I really don't think you're that far away from having a championship team pull a Bolton or a Bury. I really think that's about to happen. You're so close with some teams that have spent crazy money to try to get back to the Premier League and haven't. The money's not there. But Jaime Ojeda, who covers MLS for Severa Sports, based in Barcelona, going through kind of the world of professional leagues around the world, MLS is part of a group. Only 18% of leagues in the world have a collective bargaining agreement with their players. Collective bargaining agreements are good things. They set standards for how players are treated. Only 18% of the leagues in the world have that. Only 33% of leagues around the world have a minimum salary. Now, can MLS's minimum salary be higher? Yes, and it needs to be. The CBA, I think it really needs to be six figures. It needs to get to the 100,000 mark for the minimum for the salary. I hope that it does in the CBA. But only 33% have a minimum salary specified. That means 2/3 of the leagues around the world, you're going to have players making next to nothing in them. Happens. Yes, there's a lot of small leagues around the world. I know that's what people are going to point out. But MLS doesn't want to be just a small league. And I don't think soccer fans in the United States and Canada should want it to be just a small league. It doesn't have the same impact if it's just a small league. As we talked about to open the show, the growth of the game all over this country and in areas where you haven't had much of a history of soccer. Big reason why is the growth of Major League Soccer, because it's on TV, because it's high profile, because Atlanta United's done what they've done, because others have done what they've done. Major League Soccer, according to Jaime Ojeda, is also part of the 9% of leagues that spent more than $50 million on incoming transfers. So when we get into this whole thing about the growth of the league and people want to try to tell you, well, it's not even in the top 20 leagues in the world, or it's not any better than the English Championship, or it's not any better than the Scottish Premier League, or it's not any better than this league or that league. It's just not true. It is, and it's getting better and better. And as I've said, I think the target should be France. I think the target by 2026, when the World Cup comes here, for me, the target should be as big as of a league, and PSG is the outlier, but as a league as France. And France is in that in-between situation when you compare it to England, Germany, Italy, Spain, your big four. France is number 5. France is a league that has teams that go out and they spend pretty good transfer fees to bring top players in, but they also buy players young and develop them and sell them on. think that's where MLS can get to. You have players who stay in France and play most of their career there. You have players who leave. You have some players who come back at the end of their career, French nationals. I think you're going to get that here too. I think that's where the goal should be. And then that World Cup can kick it up to another level potentially, along with instability in other leagues. Because, you mentioned the CBAs, we mentioned minimum salaries here. Some top leagues don't have those. And you're going to have things fall apart in different parts of the world. We've talked about the losses in Italy, for example. That's a league that how sustainable is it for Italy to be among the best 4 leagues in the world when you've got teams losing hundreds of millions of dollars in a year? In a year. The championship is you're going to have teams bust.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's about to happen. MLS, that ain't happening. And yes, they charged a large expansion fee to bring Charlotte into the league. Charlotte should have a large impact on the league. I think they have that potential. I think that money is going to go back into the league. And yes, it does need to be a situation where the players in collective bargaining negotiations are saying, look, we need our minimum salary to be higher. We need charter flights to be guaranteed. We need, better treatment. But also, you see players around the world clamoring in larger and larger numbers to come play in this league because the checks don't bounce, the quality of life is great, you're safe, and oh yeah, by the way, the soccer's really good too, and it's a good competition, and it's a league where you can improve in. All of those things make it a good competition, a good league that is trying to be great. It's not there yet, but these are the types of moves that it takes, and yeah, it's a large expansion fee. Look, it's been built differently than other leagues around the world. It launched a lot later than a lot of other leagues around the world too. It didn't have the shackles that others did when you had to create promotion relegation. You had to create different systems. MLS was able to start from scratch and imagine itself in whatever way it wanted to. It's hard to say that it hasn't worked.
And it's just, I think a lot of folks get caught up in the idea where, hey, we ought to be like that. If we're going to be like that, then we have to mimic every single thing that we see to get to a particular level. If you're using the Premier League or Serie A as your comparison stick, yeah, we've got to mimic every single thing that they're doing to get to that league size. I think you ought to blaze your own trail. I think that what you should do is be what MLS has shown itself to be, financially prudent, taking gradual steps. And now it's at the point where if you have someone who understands the value of a franchise, both for a market that a business is based in, for a market that a businessman is based in, but at the same time understands its value as an asset. And this is something, that I will continue to talk to folks about. It's like, look, these are very smart businessmen. Arthur Blank is a smart businessman. He didn't get AMBSC where it is by throwing money willy-nilly at something. He understood the level of investment. He understood that you have to spend money to make money. You're seeing that with Tepper in Charlotte. He understands the value of what's going on. You're seeing folks who are buying into franchises like in Orlando City, where you're seeing valuations of $500 million. You're seeing, a markup of 30% value for MLS franchises. People are flocking to this and seeing that it's good business in addition to being a good part of the community and a good part of a growing league. So it's not something that people are just throwing money at a problem, trying to fix a problem. They're understanding that if everything moves together soundly, then you can get to a level like League 1. But the collective bargaining agreement for me is something I'm going to continue to harp on as well, that it has to be done because it's a key point in the league right now for the league to continue to grow and the CBA, how it's negotiated and what comes out of it, are going to be just as integral to the growth of the league, as we're seeing when you have guys who are more than happy to throw $350 million for a franchise fee so they can get in on the quality investment that MLS franchises are right now.
Because that's how they're looking at it, as that investment's going to grow. That's David Tepper's expectation. And that's what fuels it. That's what those championship teams that are about to bust themselves are chasing, is that growth, that money, that pot, of gold at the end of the rainbow of getting promoted. Well, they might find that pot's empty and they might not have a club anymore. And on the other end of it, that's a problem too. And it's an interesting situation looking around the world at different leagues where you have a small number of teams that are really driving things, and then you have another stable group of teams that are maybe just a cut below, and then you have interchangeable parts with teams that get relegated and get promoted and bounce back and forth and yo-yo back and forth. And then you have a lot of teams that are lower division teams. Flat out. That's where they're always going to be. They're always going to be a second division team. They're always going to be a third division team. They're always going to be a smaller team than that. That's okay. It's different here with MLS growing in the way that it has. If it had been created to grow in a different way, if it had been created to grow in an organic way, as some said, it should have been. At one point, there was I don't even know if it truly got to a proposal standpoint in the late 80s of creating a promotion relegation league that had no interest and didn't happen. You had a couple different leagues around that time that started that were essentially just smaller versions of what the North American Soccer League had been. And then you had MLS come in and try to make it big and stuttered and then stabilized and now has done that to the point that MLS is what it is today. USL Championship has done, I think, honestly, a lot of the same things in a smaller scale and created a partnership with MLS to do that. And it helped both sides. It's helped develop players. And I think it's helped both leagues grow. And I think you'll continue to see that go forward because both of those leagues, and MLS obviously has more stability because it's a steeper price tag to get in. So you're talking about people who are not fly-by-night groups. That's why you have what happened in Lansing in USL League One this year, where 1 year and they're out. You're not talking about $300 million to get in the door. If you're going to pay $300 million to get in the door, you've got a whole lot of millions behind that to make it work. If you're going to pay $1 million to get in the door, a little bit different conversation about how many more millions you have behind it to make it work. We saw Lansing either didn't have them or decided not to spend what they had to try to keep chasing it. And that was the case with American soccer for decades and decades and decades below MLS, and in the decades preceding MLS. Was teams would come in, they think they're going to make big money quick, it didn't happen, and then they faded away. Or they'd come in, they spend money to get in, and they didn't really have enough money to truly make it work, and they'd fade away. This has been the only league in professional soccer history in the United States that has had stable growth over 20 years. It's one of the only leagues that's lasted 20 years, period. It's an impressive feat. It's not perfect by any stretch. No league is. Nothing is. But MLS is in a much better position than a lot of people would try to lead you to believe. And I do think that the sky's the limit for it. And I do think it can continue to grow. They have to get some things better. And this CBA is going to be a big part of that. And I really, truly hope that we don't have any kind of delays in getting this negotiation done. And I hope that this is seen as the important step that it is for creating true partnership with the players, because you don't have a league without the players. You can do things to treat them better, and you have the ability to do so now. Maybe you didn't 10 years ago. You definitely didn't 20 years ago in the very beginning stages. You didn't have the revenues to back up larger salaries. You do now. Raise that minimum up. Create the other things that make it a better league of choice for players to come play in, and the league will be rewarded for it. Now's the time to do it, because you're in a very healthy spot. So get it right. Get that pathway to this right relationship and the strong relationship, and can continue moving forward, because I really think this league, in 10 more years, you look back, we talked about the last decade for the Chicago Fire, which has been very bad. But you look back going into the 2010 season of MLS, and you compare it to going into the 2020 season for MLS. It doesn't even feel like the same league.
No.
It doesn't even feel like the same thing we're talking about. Like, some of the names are the same, but it doesn't feel like the same thing that we're talking about. It's special. And going into 2030 in MLS, who knows? Who knows what it could be at that point? Because then you're coming off of a World Cup. You're 4 years after the World Cup has been here. Who knows? Who knows what that looks like? This is a really interesting time for the growth of the game in this country. It's a place that the game has never been in the United States. Consider that sometimes when little things get us frustrated when it comes to rules and different allocation monies and yam, tam, and gam and all these different things. It's kind of uncharted territory, and I hope they can get everything right and continue that pathway. I hope that in 10 years we're talking about this league like, wow, can you imagine what it was like 10 years ago? Everything felt so small. I hope that we're like that. I hope that we're like that going into the next decade of this league. Let's take a quick break, come back, wrap everything up on an Overreaction Monday right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Final segment. Soccer Down here, December 16th. Thanks to all of y'all who are listening live. Thanks to everybody who listens to this later on the podcast version. For you guys who, and I've had a lot of people reach out or run into people over the last couple months, and say that they listen all the time, but they're not able to listen live, so they're not able to join into the conversations and tweet questions. Tweet questions whenever at us at Soccer Down, or send a direct message, or send an email, or send a Facebook response, or send a Facebook message, or send a direct message on Instagram, whatever. all of it's fair game, and we'll bring it into the mix for the next show. It's Tuesday Thoughts tomorrow, so it can be really wherever you want to take it. You want to get deep into something. I think tomorrow I want to dig into the thread about VAR that popped up from Dale Johnson of ESPN. And he went deep into the VAR situations from the Liverpool match, and it took it to a broader question than just VAR. I don't know if it was intentional, about laws of the game and about offside particularly. So I think that'll be a Tuesday Thoughts topic, is changes or things you'd like to see in the laws of the game, changes in the way that the VAR is used. Let's reimagine it. Like, now that we've seen it, now that we've seen different ways of doing it, now that we've seen the Premier League think that they know better than anybody else, but they're wrong, and how they do it, which has been wrong, MLS does far better than the Premier League. Go ahead at me, it's fine. Let's talk about VAR and IFAB and laws of the game and what you would like to see different. That's your Tuesday Thoughts primer for Tuesday's show. So go ahead and tweet or Instagram or direct message or Facebook message or whatever message you would like to send. Some of you guys have my number and you text me these questions, and that's fine too. So send that to us for tomorrow's Tuesday Thoughts show. But we have overreactions on a Monday to get to right now.
That we do. And let's start off with Katie Weaver. The Couch Ultras, by the way, got up very, very early this morning, or it was very, very late last night, as they were prepping for their
Gwen
signing.
Loves the Couch Ultras, by the way.
As she should. They are tremendous.
Should love the Couch Ultras. They are the greatest.
Katie's asking separately, do we like the Whitecap social trolling discontent fans with their signing tease tweets? I think I'm okay with it. And what is the Village? ? #silly season.
Well, they have announced it now. El Tanque, Lucas Cavallini, is now part of the Vancouver Whitecaps. That has been officially announced. I thought they were doing that at 1 o'clock Eastern time, but maybe they just didn't want to wait anymore. So, welcome to the Village, Lucas, and they have a tank with the number 9 on it in the video that they have posted. And I think that tank is positioned outside of BC Place and will be part of this whole announcement at 1 o'clock. He is known as El Tanque. He's done very well in Liga MX. I like how they handled this. I thought it was interesting that they came out and said, like, we are announcing a striker. It wasn't just like, oh, we've got a big announcement. Like, no, we are announcing a striker. Because, look, the word was already out there. It had already been, there was no secret here. Cavallini was the guy. And he was going to Vancouver, and it was everywhere. So have a little fun with it. The thing about the fans, we'll get to the Village part in a second. The thing about the fans, so they tweeted about 37-second video of people adding them on Twitter and saying, the Whitecaps fan in me has been on life support for a long time, but the pulse quickened. They spend the money to celebrate 40 years since they won a cup, but they're not spending the money. Spend money, spend money, spend money. That's what they all keep saying. So they did it, and they posted their reply that said, okay. That's pretty good stuff. I like the way they handled this. People want to call them out for not spending money. Well, they just spent more money than they've ever spent before on signing a Canadian national team player. Good move. Very good move. Dig it. Okay, the thing about the Village, though, that's a city of Vancouver thing, or is Vancouver considered a village, I believe. Because I remember seeing that when we were up there this year, and I was like, wait a minute, what? Vancouver, the Village? Because it was everywhere in their branding. And, it's different. I mean, Charlotte Town, maybe Vancouver Village, and all of that's going to play into it. I was trying to find it, so I think it's something to do with how Vancouver is known. I think it's about the city. It's not specifically tied to the team, but I like what they've done with the branding around it. It works really well. Are you finding anything about Vancouver and Village and why?
Efforting.
Because I hear clicking.
Yes. Village Vancouver is an actual website, villagevancouver.ca,
Well, it could be a lot.
Vancouver's leader in transition toward low-carbon, resilient, and complete communities.
That's not it. That doesn't make any sense.
So
nothing to do with it.
You have like there are different villages in and around the city.
No, that's not either.
Yeah, so the village in and of itself, I mean, there is the village, which is part of success.bc, and it's below market affordable. Below market affordable.
Go.
Hit it.
Because it has nothing to do with any of that. So,
LEED certified communities.
No, it has nothing to do with anything like that. You're being far too specific. This actually goes back into the history of the Whitecaps, which is very cool. So, 1979, they won the Soccer Bowl in the North American Soccer League. ABC TV sportscaster Jim McKay said that Vancouver must be like the deserted village right now during the Soccer Bowl match where they beat the Cosmos that was in the semifinals, actually. Then they beat the Rowdies in the finals. So they kind of embraced the whole thing, the village of Vancouver. That's really cool. That's how they did it. It comes off of Jim McKay and something he said, kind of diminishing the size of Vancouver, I'm just saying. So the village of Vancouver, and that's where it started, because Jim McKay said Vancouver must be like the deserted village right now, as so many people were watching the game on TV.
So it doesn't have anything to do with LEED certified housing?
No, John. No. Okay. Why would that have anything to do with a professional soccer team or a city?
Not aware, just putting that out there.
No.
Shiva with a question. She says, based on our roster right now, what's your starting lineup for our first CONCACAF Champions League match? Who's on the bench? I'm a little nervous. We don't have the depth at center back and left side, but I also could be overreacting.
Well, starting lineup, you're not asking about depth, so we can't confuse the questions. Let's go starting lineup right now. Tomorrow, you're playing at Motagua tomorrow, and you've had training camp, and you've prepared, and everybody's healthy. The starting lineup would be Brad Kazan in goal. Back line, left to right, George Bello, Leandro Gonzalez-Perez, Miles Robinson, Franco Escobar. Midfield, Jeff Lorenowitz, Emerson Heineman, P.T. Martinez as the 10, Ezequiel Barco on the left wing, Julian Gressel on the right wing, Joseph Martinez up front. That's my starting lineup if they played tomorrow and everybody's healthy. And that would give you a bench of Tito Villalba, Eric Remetti, Mo Adams, Brooks Lennon. It's 4. That gets you to 15. Brendan Moore would be your backup goalkeeper right now. That gets you to 16. You got 2 spots. George Campbell right now, but I think you'll address that with a center back. And either Andrew Carlton, Dion Pereira, or Luis Fernando would be the other one right now. But I think you're going to add another center back. I think that's a key here because you'd like to have another option. Because right now I think Lorenowitz is still your 6. Now, if you go out and sign a 6 and Lorenowitz becomes your main depth option as a 6 and as a center back, then it's a little bit different conversation. But right now that would be my starting 11 and my 18.
Jorge B. Should Inter Miami fans hit the panic button? Very close to training camp. They don't have a coach yet, and we're still waiting on that big star player.
Yep. Because I feel like a lot of the potential options that they have considered for coach and or other players are starting to dissipate. One that they were linked to at one point, Ezequiel Palacios from River Plate. The president of River, Rodolfo D'Onofrio, said on TIC that the only offer for Palacios is from Bayer Leverkusen. And D'Onofrio said that Palacios' agents have told him that's where he wants to go. No mention of Miami. Gennaro Gattuso, now he's got a job. He's in Naples. He's at Napoli. So cross that one off the list. We haven't heard anything about Solari, but you could have hired him a long time ago, so it makes you think that maybe he wasn't the first or second choice. Patrick Vieira, he's still at Nice, and Arsenal's going to hire somebody. I don't think Freddie Ljungberg's going to get the job based off performances. Mikel Arteta is now in that mix, although some fan TV people from Arsenal think that Mikel Arteta just puts out cones for Pep Guardiola, and you shouldn't consider him because of that.
Arsenal folks apparently left Arteta's house at 1:20 this morning.
Yeah, but he just puts out cones, John. He's
Right.
he's just an assistant coach who just puts out cones because that's what assistant coaches do in the modern game.
Yeah. Give him the orange vest and the helmet and just have him put out cones. Right.
Yeah, there's not many assistant coaches who do that at the club game in the United States, let alone at Manchester City. Anyway, okay. Yeah, that one gave me a headache when I saw it. So, who could end up in Miami at this point? I don't know.
Everton's looking at Ancelotti now.
Well, Ancelotti hasn't ever been mentioned for Miami. I'm talking about people in Miami at this point. I mean, like, where are they going to go? Because there's not a lot of options out there at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Big Sam will be more than happy to go to Miami.
Yeah, Big Sam's not the kind of style that Miami is looking for. You don't have to fight a relegation battle, so I don't think Big Sam works in Major League Soccer. He's the ultimate relegation battler.
Tony Pulis, yeah. All those guys.
I don't know. I don't know what Miami's going to do. I don't know what they're going to do with manager. I don't know what they're going to do with top player. Now, they will get top players, but I think they're going to have to wait till the summer. And if that's the case, that's the case. But if you are an Inter Miami fan and you expected this team to blow everybody's doors off day one, I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't. Marcelo Gallardo, the only other one really when it comes to Miami, he's saying he's not going anywhere, and D'Onofrio's saying he's under contract through 21. So Solari really seems to be the only person that's out there that isn't directly linked to another job and isn't currently working in another job that has been linked to the job at any point in Miami. And the thing about him is you could have hired him by now. If you haven't, it makes you think that, well, you weren't interested at the beginning of it. Can you spin that back and become interested? Because there's nobody else to be interested in, I guess. But then does Solari say, you know what, I don't even want to deal with this. I'm just going to wait for something else. Which is also possible.
Two more to go. Yeah. 2 more comments this morning. A lot of folks are talking about names, and glad that you guys are having a conversation amongst yourselves. When we got into the discussion about the MLS's version of the Dirty South, James McClatchy says he's old enough to remember when the Cardinals were the baseball team people followed and rooted for, as a part of having St. Louis in the MLS South.
Okay.
And then as a part of the South as well, Tafka saying Louisiana needs a club, and a lot of folks on the timeline were pointing at the New Orleans Jesters.
The Jesters don't have money. I mean, it's not even close. That's the thing when you get into this. Like, yeah, it sounds great, but the New Orleans Jesters pulled out of USL to play in the NPSL, and then they pulled out of the NPSL because they might do NISA. It's the old conversations of this team because they're in this city, or this team because they've done something at the lower divisions, they can do MLS. Those are gone, y'all. Those are back in the annals of history these days, because the New Orleans Jesters, I do not think, have $325 million to match what David Tepper just paid. I mean, I'm trying to remember the last time the New Orleans Jesters ran a professional soccer club. And I think we are going back to, like, when are we going back to? Never, actually, because they were PDL, they went to the NPSL. So they've never done that. They started in 2003 in the PDL. They spent 10 years in the PDL. They jumped to the NPSL in 2013. They played there 6 years. Kenny Farrell, coach and owner and president, or primary owner, I think. was the chairman of the NPSL in 2019, and the Jesters went on hiatus, and they were linked at one point to the North American Soccer League when it was still a thing, and then they were linked to NISA and NPSL Pro, and I don't think there's a status on the Jesters for 2020 at that level, let alone an MLS conversation. So, no, the only people that you're talking about with a New Orleans team coming in would be the Saints or the Pelicans. Unless there's somebody else in New Orleans that has the type of money and would be interested in a professional sports team.
It would have to be something Benson. It would have to be something from the Benson family to get things started.
And the only place they could play would be the Superdome right now because there's no other suitable venue currently. So then you're having a factor in building a stadium. That's why it's not easy, and you can't look at a map anymore about building MLS. It is, if you're going to do it, the expectation is that you're going to be doing it at a first-class level, and that is a cost. The other route is to go into USL Championship and do it there and pay probably $10 million to get in the door and have expectations as well. I mean, in terms of venues, I think the expectation in the next 5 years is for USL Championship teams to be in 10,000 seaters. That's not easy. That's not a given because these leagues have to be taken seriously to grow. And I think that's what we've seen in this country now is that it's not good enough to just put a team on the field and expect soccer fans to come out and spend their money because their kids play or because they watch the Premier League or because they grew up playing. That's not okay anymore. You can't just expect people to show up. It's going to be a first-class product. And a first-class product in a city like Louisville, who is announcing a new logo, I believe in a minute now, is different than a first-class product in Chicago. It's different than a first-class product in Atlanta. There's variance for sure, but there's still a level of expectation to do a high-level professional team that you've got to have the resources to do it, and that number shrinks as those resources that are needed continues to increase. It's just the fact of the growth.
We are officially caught up, sir.
I was keeping up with the Couch Ultras and what they were up to. They have done.
Are they awake?
They better be.
They're planning last night.
Let's see. So yes, they are awake. They are welcoming Cavallini. No, they have not tweeted yet. So they might not be awake. It is 8:04 in the village of Vancouver. So. We'll see if they get up in time to go see the tank. But they did post a pretty sweet Stephen A. Smith video that made absolute sense. This is what the Whitecaps have needed to do. And this, as we have said all day today, when we've talked about Chicago, we've talked about other teams, we've talked about Miami, we've talked about Buzz, we've talked about what was needed to say, we're not going to accept being junk anymore. Vancouver was junk last year. You bring in Cavallini and what he did in Liga MX at Puebla, what he's done for the Canadian national team. You've got somebody who shouldn't be junk. It can always happen that they're still junk. That happens. Sometimes you miss. Sometimes players don't fit. Sometimes things happen. But this is a move that at least says we are not going to accept being junk. It's a step in the right direction for the Whitecaps.
Yes. Completely and totally agree. Now, where do you go from here?
They need more pieces to not be junk, and they need to show that Marc Dos Santos is the manager that people expect him to be. I don't think he's had the pieces to do that yet, and you're running out of time. So this is year 2, and if he's got the pieces, then you've got to get the performances, because if you get through this year and you've invested in the roster and you're not getting a better set of results, then you start to look at the manager and say, well, is it you? And is that what we need to change? I hope he gets the opportunity because the pedigree's good, the feedback is good. A lot of people really like Marc Dos Santos, but didn't see anything last year, and it was a better roster. So give him a better roster. Let's see how it looks this year. And we'll see. There's still a lot of questions around the league. We'll get into some of that tomorrow. We'll get into what happened around the world of soccer on Soccer Over There tonight. It will be a Crumpets and Espresso version of Soccer Over There. We're not going to be live at the Brewhouse Cafe tonight. The holiday party scene has kicked into full gear, and we will be at a soiree as opposed to a live show. We'll be back at the Brewhouse next week, but we will have Soccer Over There, Crumpets and Espresso style, going live around 6 o'clock on your Soccer Down Here app, on your podcatchers, on Spreaker, on soccerdownhere.net. So we'll be back live tomorrow morning for Tuesday Thoughts edition. We're going to talk laws of the game, VAR, referees. We're going to talk to Felipe Cardenas, and we're going to talk about MLS launching in Charlotte. It'll be a packed show in the morning, starting live at 9 o'clock. Thank you for listening. Mucho to y'all.
Mucho platico.